So age 18, you're in California, you're making $9 an hour, can barely afford gas.
Mm-hmm.
But were you happy?
No, I wasn't happy. And at this time I was working at a med spa. So I had moved in with my niece. I was working at a med spa that had 2 locations. At the front desk, I also wasn't working as an esthetician yet. I was just working front desk because that's a lot of times your way in as a new esthetician is like work at the front first. I was struggling with body image issues, especially being out in LA. I was struggling just being broke in general and just a lot of things mentally. So yeah, no, I was broke and I was unhappy, but I was reading the right books at least.
I want to touch on the body image issues because I know in today's society that, especially with social media, I'm sure there's a lot of women who, and men too, who deal with body image issues. What issues did you have exactly, and how did you navigate and work your way through them at that age 18, 19?
You know, I mean, I always worked out. Like, that was always big to me. So no matter how broke I was, I always always would have enough money to join a gym. Like, that was very important to me always. I don't know if I really navigated it well at the time, but I think because of it, sometimes if we have like insecurities, we try to get validation, right? From like other people or other sources of like, okay, this is my insecurity, but how can I be validated? So maybe that's not true in some way.
Yeah.
And so I think the body image stuff came later, more heavily later on when I moved to Florida. But at that point, I honestly think I was so broke that I was just trying to do anything to make money. Yeah, I don't know if I could answer that question really well at that time because the forefront of my mind was money.
The issues you never got
Yeah,
over.
I didn't get rid of it, but it was like it came second to being broke. Being broke came first. And so all I can think about at that time was like, how do I actually make some money so I can like survive out here?
Let's say there's someone who's listening who's 19, 20, 21, maybe even older, but they're dealing with those issues right now. And they're trying to grow a business. What's your message to them?
Well, I really think like we're our worst critic, right? And so like you may feel like you have, body issues and things, but like you're probably the only one that's like really paying attention to it. And now like I believe that health always needs to come first if you can, right? Like we can do our best to like work out and eat healthy. But I think what makes it worse is your thought of what other people think of you. And usually you're the only one that really cares that much. Everyone else is just caring about their own lives, right?
It reminds me of, for those who don't know, Raya loves to salsa dance. And so one night, there was a salsa dance, I don't know what you call it, meetup, session, whatever. Raya heard about it. My mom was in town and we decided to go. I said, let's do it. And she thought I was joking because I had never done it before. And so we get there and people are dancing. I'm kind of standing off to the side. And then one time Ray and I danced and I thought I was messing up, thought I looked stupid and was stepping on Ray's feet, stumbling. But then I looked around like no one was looking, right?
Yeah,
no one, so fun. Yeah, no one was paying attention. And so, yeah, for you to say like we are our own worst critics and we put these thoughts in our head that people are watching us or thinking something about us that isn't even true sometimes. So yeah, that's the thought that just came into my head when you said that. All right. So now in California, I know there's a few different stories of things that happened in California. You needed to work, make money. Let's talk about that. What did you do to try and make money while you were out there? How did that go? Good or bad? Did you put yourself in any bad situations where things could have went left at any point? And what did you do to get out of it?
So I was making $9 an hour working at this med spa, and which was a shit show, by the way, and it totally ruined my dreams, or tainted them of like the facade of working at a celebrity med spa, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And so I then would just be pretty much every night, I would look on Craigslist for other jobs, because this is when Craigslist was like much more popular, right, for jobs, like not as much Indeed and stuff, or at least not to my knowledge. And so I'd search on Craigslist, and then a lot of the jobs that I would see for aesthetics were, or in the spa industry were really low. But then when I would look at other categories like personal assistants or things like that, and I don't even know what category that was under, but they're paying like $30 an hour. And so I started applying to personal assistant jobs, and I was like, man, this is going to be amazing, like $30 an hour. And so the first time, and I should have known, like, even the fact that it was set up weird, but I'm 18, I'm very naive at the time, and I'm just like $30 an hour, like, yes. And so the first job I applied to for an interview, I drive like an hour away, right, because everything's far in California, and I think it was like somewhere in Santa Monica, and I was living in the Valley. So I drive down to Santa Monica, and the interview is at this guy's house. So first weird thing. But it wasn't just a house, it was like an apartment building. And I remember driving there and parking and thinking, okay, this is a little weird, but like, I really need this $30 an hour job. And so I go in, and it was just, the whole thing was totally sketchy. But like, I'm so naive at the time, like truly, that I don't think there is any such thing as sex trafficking, or I could be kidnapped, or any kind of weird stuff doesn't cross my mind in that sense. I'm truly just thinking like, get the job, because I can manifest any job. So I go in, and he starts telling me about the job, and how he books models for videos, and I don't know what kind of videos he's talking about, until he's like, let me show you and see if you can do a good job helping me choose the models. And so then he takes me into his bedroom, and there's like a camera set up and a computer, and I sit down in front of the computer. He opens it up, and he's like booking like porn models. And so at that moment, like, even as soon as I like go in the bedroom, like, here's where like my, is it naiveness?
Yeah.
Like starts to fade. And I'm like now thinking I'm in a really dangerous situation. And so I don't remember like how I just left there, but I got out of there. And then I'm thinking, because sometimes it takes some of us 2 times to learn the lesson. And so the second time, so now I'm thinking, okay, that was dangerous, and that was not the right one, but like there's other ones, and that was just like a monopoly. And so then
anomaly.
So then I applied again to another one, and it was a very similar situation, except that time I got the person offered me a glass of wine, and there was something in it. And so after that is when I got pretty depressed, and I don't think I knew it was depression, and I don't think I knew even why. And after that, I moved back home to New Mexico. I just, 1, I couldn't afford it, but 2, I was just so sad all the time, and I just knew I needed to go home.
Got you. Throughout this whole time, were you thinking about aesthetics still? I know you were looking to get into other industries.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit, that's the word I'm looking for, jaded in California, but I still wanted to be an esthetician. I never really got that chance in California. But the first thing I did when I moved back to Santa Fe was, and this was after I worked for Ed Hardy. That's when I moved back. So I was depressed, but I was also interning at Ed Hardy doing events, which was totally random. And they didn't pay me for 2 weeks or a month. And so that's when I had to move back. So the first thing I did when I moved back was I reached out to Denise, who was the owner of the tanning salon, and she had opened a wellness center, and which also had aesthetics in it. And I asked if I could work for her still, and she hired me right away.
Gotcha. So what age is this? Is this 21?
This is still 18.
Oh,
yeah,
still
I was only
18.
in California for a year.
Wow. Okay. So age 18, move back, working with the Denise. You're back into the aesthetic industry at this point.
Mm-hmm.
What were you doing? Waxing, facials?
So she got me amazing training with the company DNA. She flew me out to Santa Barbara to get trained. She flew me to LA to get trained in lash extensions, but mainly facials.
Mainly facials. So doing facials with Denise. Let's circle back to when you were working at the place in California. What was the biggest lesson that you took away from that business?
Working at the med spa.
Yeah.
That she was a horrible business owner.
What did she do to be horrible?
It was all about her. I mean, she had her picture blasted everywhere. And I'm talking like pictures like this big, but all of her everywhere. It was dirty. You know, she didn't care about regular clients coming in. She just wanted celebrity clients, and they would only come in because they were gifted gift cards at the Emmy Suites. You know, at the time you could do that. And so they'd come in one time and never come back. But she would use that as like, hey, we're a celebrity med spa. None of the providers were happy. It was just an overall, you know, she had me. One time she gave me the job of, you know, she's trying to get a loan, and she had me enter numbers in some sort of like profit and loss. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time, but basically fake numbers so she can get a loan. And she had me, this like 18-year-old, doing it. Like it was a total crazy, it was a shit show.
All right, so fast forward to Denise, now back in New Mexico. She's flown you to get trained by DNA. How's this experience going? What's the differences you see between Denise and the med spa in California?
Oh, night and day. I mean, I think the biggest thing it definitely shows me is there's good bosses and bad bosses, you know, and like you want to be as different, you know, be eventually different than the bad bosses, and you want to emulate your good bosses, right? And so like I have not a single bad thing to ever say about that woman. Like she really got me started on my journey. I think the biggest thing in that point was that I wasn't busy enough, right? The facials I was doing were amazing. They were like this is, I feel like, before maybe facials were even like, I think now it's standard, but at the time, to me at least, she was the first one really charging like $350 for a facial. And I'm like brand new out of school doing these $350 facials. I'm getting $60 every time I do one, which was amazing, except for the fact that I just wasn't busy enough with clients. And so that would do those facials. And so I was also working at the tanning salon because she owned both. And I still wasn't cutting it, right? And so even though I had moved back in with my parents were charging me rent to live with them at this point. And so as much as I love working for her, I wanted to move. You know, most of my friends were going to college at UNM in Albuquerque. I wanted to move up there. And so I ended up moving to Albuquerque, and I ended up getting a job at a waxing salon doing facials. Like it was a woman that had done my Brazilian wax, and she was amazing. She's like, oh, I wax like 30 people a day. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, oh, okay, if she waxes 30 people a day and I do facials, like I should be pretty busy up here, right? And so that was my first job I got in Albuquerque, and when I kind of transitioned eventually to waxing.
She was waxing 30 people a day. You thought you would have a bunch of clients for facials. How did that turn out?
So yeah, I had absolutely no desire to like do Brazilian waxing in my career. That was never like a goal of mine. And so what happened was I was hired to do facials, and she became so overbooked with waxing clients that she ended up training me how to wax. And as much as I was like fearful to do it in the beginning, because, you know, I mean, it's kind of maybe I feel like now it's more normalized, but at the time, like most of my friends weren't doing Brazilian waxing. Like they didn't teach us in school. Like it wasn't like a talked about thing. So, I mean, the first time you like wax someone's like vagina, essentially, like it is like a scary, intimate situation. And so it was never my goal, but she trained me how to do it. And I turned out to be a really good waxer. But even more importantly to me at the time, honestly, was that now I actually was starting to make real money. And so I went from being pretty much completely broke up until that point. And when I moved to Albuquerque, I was living with my best friend and one of her friends from college. And we lived in a 1-bedroom, like apartment situation, but it was like a townhome. So the 1 bedroom was at the top and we shared the bottom floor, which was supposed to be like an entrance, but we made it into a bedroom with the two of us in our beds. And so like there was a bathroom down there. But now I went from being super broke to, I remember coming home like to our shared apartment situation and stuffing cash into my dresser. Like I could not believe it. It was the first time in my life that I was like ahead of the game for once.
Throughout this process, when did the business idea start to kick in?
So I worked at this waxing salon for about 2 years and I was super busy. I was probably like one of basically the top waxer there. I was always a great employee. But what started happening was, and the money was great. I mean, I think it was probably like $5,000 or $6,000, but that's a lot of money, especially you don't have the expenses, you don't have the bills. Most of it was tips. And so I was just, I was living a decent life up there. And what started happening was I just got really sick of the owners because it felt like they were running us like, I don't know, the only word I can think of is like, it wasn't slaves, but like, that's what it felt like. Like every 15 minutes, there was a new client, no breaks. And if they did give you a break, your lunch break was 30 minutes. But the thing is, because there was no other breaks in the day, we'd easily go into our lunch break, have to take trash outside, do all of we essentially didn't get a break every day. So I was waxing like 30 to 35 clients every single day without a break. And the owners were just, I think they never really learned how to be good leaders. And it was great that the place was busy, but like a lot of people will leave a job with bad leadership. And so I started hating them so much because they were just not, I don't think they're bad people. They were just not great leaders. So I started making a game plan in my head of like how I was going to leave. And so what I did was I was still seeing my hairstylist back in Santa Fe. And
to paint a picture, what's the distance between the two?
There's about an hour.
Okay.
But also I had signed a contract with these people for 500 miles non-compete, which at the time I didn't know would never stand up in court, but that scared me enough to be like, well, it's definitely not going to be in Albuquerque, right? And I'm not going to tell a single client. So my hairstylist back in Santa Fe had a really big family. And that's how like New Mexico, most like Hispanic New Mexico families are back there. Like big families, they know everyone, that's like that kind of small town feel. And so there was no one in Santa Fe that waxed really well at the time. And so we decided that I would go to Santa Fe one day and set up in her house. And she was going to invite all her family and friends over to her house. And we'd have a whole day of waxing, like a waxing party. And so I did that. And I don't know, I probably saw like 15 of her friends and family in that day. And she just...
This waxing party?
Yeah. One at a time. She like set it in a room. like so.
So they all just spread out on the floor, or were they?
No. So she did have a table. She had like a portable massage table. And so she set it up in a room in her house and she just had food and drinks and I one at a time would just wax each person. She didn't charge me anything. I think I just waxed her for free. And I think I probably made like $800 or $1,000 that day. And my eyes completely opened like, holy cow. Like I usually make this in maybe a week and I just made this in a day. And I don't have my mean bosses like dictating me all day. And so
let me jump in real quick. Although you didn't like how they were working you all every 15 minutes, you did learn a skill from that.
100%. And in hindsight, I'm very I'm super grateful for that job. I'm super grateful for that skill I learned. And I'm super grateful for the eye-opening experience of even being able to be like, wow, this is a really great business idea. Right? Like I was super grateful. And that's why I say I don't think they were ever bad people. I just think that most estheticians, especially when they open a business, most of them learn it from their previous job, right? And if you never grow past that, you're going to do everything the same as that previous owner or boss, right? And so I just know everything she learned new skills at the time because it was still new to be a better boss. And she probably learned that from where she learned, right?
Yeah, that's I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of times people may have a bad boss or a bad situation, but there are always things you can take from that.
100%.
What you took from that, you learned a skill of the 15-minute speed wax.
Yeah.
That eventually
changed my life.
That changed your life. Had you taken 25, 30 minutes per wax, that party would have lasted forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? That wax party would have took way too long. But since you knew how to do 15 minutes at a time, you made $800 in that night. And then from there, the light bulb went off, right?
Yeah. And so then I made a game plan of like, all right, I'm going to move back to Santa Fe for a year. And I'm going to test the waters of doing this on my own. That was always the goal because I never wanted to stay in New Mexico. I needed to come back home for a reset. And my reset ended up being like, I guess, 3 or 4 years. But I always either wanted to go back to California or to Florida where I also had family. And so I thought, let me move back to Santa Fe, test the waters, own my own, little thing for a year. And then I decided on Florida because my mom had moved to Florida. And then I'll move to Florida after that first year.
All right. Test it out. Test the waters in New Mexico. What did that look like?
So I kind of researched around and I found this really cute tanning salon, a different one. And it was this woman named Janelle, and she was opening her first storefront, and it was called Glow Spray Tan Boutique. And she was renting rooms. And so I just showed up there one day and I asked her, I met her. I don't know what I asked her, probably, if I could rent a room. And she said yes right away. And so that's where I started. And honestly, having my hairstylist name was Krista, having Krista tell all of her family and friends and like really spreading that word in a small town was huge. And that's why I think like, even when we teach now, it's like we have a lot of students that come from small towns, way smaller even than Santa Fe, and they think they're limited because they're in a small town. But honestly, I got so busy so fast because word of mouth spreads really quickly in a small town. And a lot of times there are those like either big families or big friend groups, everyone knows each other. Right. And so you have an opportunity to get really big, really fast if you're really good at what you do.
All right. So things are going great. Go shut down, get rid of all your clientele.
Yeah.
Just let that go. And then move to Florida.
So, like I said, it was always the goal to move out of New Mexico. The problem with moving to Santa Fe, when all my friends were still in Albuquerque, which was an hour drive, was I was making great money. I owned my own business, had my own schedule, which was great, but I was bored out of my mind. Every time after work, I had literally nothing to do. I really didn't have any friends in Santa Fe except for that. My hairstylist friend, she had just had a baby. Like we were just in different stages of life.
Gotcha.
I was so bored. I could not wait to get out of there. So as soon as that first year was up, as great as that first year was in business, I was willing to let that go and take a big risk to have a better quality of life.
And it's not even a risk. It's you want to seek something greater.
Yeah.
Overall, right? Quality of life. I think one thing people don't realize is the happier you are, sometimes you can attract more money too.
Yeah.
So you also seeking happiness and fulfillment.
I was also seeking, I've always wanted, to find my eventual husband, and I just didn't feel like that was going to happen in New Mexico. I was like, I feel like it's tapped out here in terms of like people either get married really young and anyone else left is like, let's move on.
Okay. So, well, one quick question. Do you remember how much you made that first year in New Mexico?
I mean, I think it was probably close to 60 or 70. The problem was that I don't know where my money went. I honestly don't. I never, I guess at the time I just really wasn't good. It was like we start a business and it's like you can be in business, but if you don't have the business skill set of like tracking data and numbers and things like that, you could fly through that money and have no idea where it goes. I mean, I think I was, spending on personal training and different things like that. I was paying rent to my dad, who I was living with at the time, and little things. But by the time I decided to move to Florida, it wasn't like I had a ton of money, right? Saved up. I had maybe $5,000, which I mostly used to start my website and a logo. That was like a $5,000 investment, and maybe a couple $1,000s left to move. Maybe it was a little bit more, but I think it was about $2,000 to buy everything or to move. And then my grandma let me use her credit card to get the rest that I needed to kind of like start my journey in Tampa.
What age was this?
So I moved to Florida. By the time I moved to Florida, I was 23.
23.
I had just turned 23.
Were you listening at this point? Were you listening to any tapes? Were you reading any books?
This was right before. Yeah.
Okay, right before. All right. So you pack up, move to Florida. Did you have a game plan when you went to a new location? What was your game plan to get back into it?
Yeah. So before I moved to Florida, I wanted to have a solid location before I got there. I don't know why. I was just ready to get to work, right? And so I didn't want to move there and get a waitressing job or, do something different. I wanted to start my business right away.
Although you did apply. You did apply at a spot that we're going to touch on in a second.
So I knew I wanted to work right away and have my business set up right away. Yeah. So I did everything that I could in Santa Fe before moving. So I found a place on Craigslist, and my mom, who was in Tampa, checked it out for me. And in her opinion, it was a good location, but we have a very big difference in maybe what's good, just a different view.
Right.
So she told me it was really cute. And so I signed for it before moving.
Without seeing it?
Without seeing it.
Mom was the eyes and ears. Okay.
So I moved to Florida. Initially, I moved in with my mom. And the location I signed for was closer to the University of Tampa, which was about 45 minutes away from my mom. So I get to Florida. I have this really cute website because I invested, the $5,000 that I invested was with a boutique website designer in Australia, because I really wanted someone that had this, I wanted to, I thought of this name Flirt Wax Bar, and I wanted it very feminine and girly. Right. And so I wanted my website to represent that. So the only website designer I could find was all the way across the world. But the logo and website she did was in my opinion at the time, amazing.
What year was this?
This is 2013.
So just want to put this into perspective. So 2013, you were willing to invest $5,000 into website logo. And
the reason was because Janelle, who owned the spray tan boutique that I was renting from,
that's right, I remember this,
gave me advice, and she said, if you invest into anything, you have to invest into a website and a logo, because everyone's going to find you through your website. This is pre-Instagram. And you're going to put your logo on everything. So it is worth the investment. So I took that advice to heart. So I have this beautiful website, this really amazing logo, in my opinion. And when I get to Tampa and I see the location that I signed for, I cried in front of the landlord. I was so upset because my mom said it was cute and it was nothing but cute. It was it had potential on the inside, but the outside was very sketchy looking. Right. And like, I think I had already had a good sense of business at this point, just from working for different people and seeing what I liked, seeing what I didn't like. And I just knew as a new client coming in and as a new business, like anyone pulling up is going to think this place is shady as AF, right? Like, yeah. And so I had already signed for it. There was no way out. So what I did was I made the best. I did the best that I could with it. I made my room as cute as possible. And this is like before salon suites became really popular. So there wasn't a lot of salon suites at the time. And if they were out of my price range anyway. And so this was a room in like this weird shared office building. It was like an office building / people lived there and like on part of it. It was just a weird building. But in the office part, there was different businesses with a shared like common reception room. Yeah. And so not only did I decorate my room and paint it and make it as cute as I can, which I did make it pretty cute, I also took initiative and I decided to paint the whole reception area. Not only did I paint it, I spray painted it's not just painting, because it was very dark. It was all brown. And they had these, it was like, if you think about going into a doctor's office, there's like a desk area, but there's no doctor behind it. And then there's doors on either side that had like all these like, I don't know, cutoffs on the doors, So I spray painted those white. I painted the desk white. I painted everything white in there and bright. I don't remember. I think I may have asked for my landlord's opinion on this, and I think he said yes, to my knowledge. But yeah, I just did it. I was like, well, for the doors, we had to spray paint. Okay. And so one of my like uncle's friends, we like 10, 11 o'clock at night, he came to Tampa with me and helped me spray paint. Changed out all the furniture with furniture that either my family had donated or I found on Craigslist for really cheap. So we switched out the furniture in the reception area. So I made it, I made it the cutest that I could. I did the best that I could with it. Because my fear was that I'm going to get clients, they're going to show up and they're going to leave. And that actually did happen a few times before they would actually come in. And because the location wasn't ideal, I knew from the beginning that I had to make the experience with me and the experience of their service as amazing as I could. Like I had to wow every client and make them hooked because I couldn't compete on location at the time.
Amazing. So that leads me to the thought of you can't wait for things to be perfect. Mm-hmm. So you fix up this place, you make it great, make it look nice, and you start to think, okay, I got to wow them with the experience. Yeah. For a young esthetician that's listening right now, what are some of the things you did that they could do right now to take their little place, their little suite to the next level?
I mean, I think it's all in the details, but I think the most important detail, if, your location's not ideal, like I did, make it the best that you can, decorate it the cutest that you can to match your brand. But outside of that, it's like your energy and how you show up with clients. Like clients can tell, I didn't care if someone was coming for an $8 lip wax. Like I would be so excited and so grateful for any client that would come in. And then also, I think that a lot of I shouldn't say a lot of the advice. Some advice I've heard from some really booked solo estheticians, 2 new estheticians, is that charge your worth, have your boundaries, don't go outside XYZ. But the difference, I think, between some estheticians, who go solo, there's 2 different types. There's the estheticians that go solo, like me, that have no clients at all. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get clients and get busy and get booked, including doing discounts, including going outside of normal business hours, including being available whenever, right? Like I remember having this one of my first clients, like maybe the third client ever that booked, she found me, she was at the university and she found me on Groupon, but she also booked a full leg, full arm, like a full body wax. So I had this like 2-hour appointment booked at the end of my day, which was like 5 o'clock to 6:30 or something. And it's like 6 o'clock and she didn't show up. And I'm like texting her and calling her, and she finally texts back. And she's like, hey, I'm running late. It's already the end of her appointment. Is that okay? And it's like, I didn't have clients all day. I'd been sitting there for hours with no clients, but yeah, like I will be here when you get here.
Of course it's all right.
And I remember waxing her and I was there till like 9:30 at night. And then I drove home 45 minutes because I would literally do anything. And she became a client every single month for at least, till she left Tampa, like 3 or 4 years. So the estheticians that take clientele with them will tell you completely different advice. Charge your worth, have your boundaries, do that. In the beginning, you have to do whatever it takes. Wow your clients. And later on, I think you can train your clients, right? You can train the boundaries, which I did. But in the beginning, you're just trying to survive, right? And pay your personal bills, your business bills, and stay open. And, every client counts in the beginning.
I was just having this discussion with one of our students, and they were saying they have a strict policy. Just went out on their own, and they have a strict policy of if you're 5 minutes late, I can't see you, you get charged. And I said, how does that make you feel when you have to tell someone who's 5 minutes late who may come in or something? Yeah. How does it make you feel to turn them away? And they said they don't like it. It doesn't make them feel good, right? And so I was explaining to them that sometimes you have to have a little leeway because your own rules can make it hard for you to be happy. And what are you about to say?
For some places, it's like the season and place you're in business matters.
Yes.
If you were like where I was at that waxing salon and every 15 minutes we were booked, we literally couldn't afford 5 minutes, understand implementing that policy if you have to. But if you're new and you have the 5 minutes, like, they're still there. They still showed up. Things happen. We do need to like have that awareness, right? Of like the stage of business matters, and you can always become more strict in time, right?
And the lifetime value of a client, you have to factor that in. Big corporations, like a European or whatever, they can do that because they're also spending
marketing spend is huge.
Probably $100,000 a month on marketing, right? So they know they're going to get another client to walk in the door.
Yeah.
All right. Any issues, any hurdles? Physically, how are you doing? Mentally, how are you doing at this time? Tell me what's happening with you.
Yeah. Oh my God, so many hurdles. Where do I start?
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for episode 3, which drops Tuesday, February 13th at 11 a.m. Peace.